generated now, or hopefully we're going to see what they look like tomorrow. So if you miss biology in the morning, tomorrow morning, or small groups, then you need to just come in sometime in a PLT tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, any of those times, outside of class. Grab your specimen, take a look at it, and then you're going to write your data and a couple of lab questions. So it's not a lot to finish up the lab, but you need to probably take 5 minutes to come in on your own to take a look at those. After the venereal lab, we are going to be doing a lab looking at arthropods. We're going to describe the arthropods today. We're going to have you guys look at some different examples in the lab tomorrow and Wednesday. So if you are gone for either of those, there's a couple ways you can make that up. Again, you can come in later in the day in a PLT if you want to hop in a different class and just work in the lab that way. Or the lab will also be available on Canvas. We added a bunch of links to the lab to give you some information so you can do it more on your own if you need to. Okay, so those are the 2 ways you can make those up. Does anybody have any questions?
Because it wasn't posted, so then I just printed that.
That's what you'll be missing. Alright, so let's have you guys pull up your guided notes. We started last Thursday or Friday looking at biology. Yep. So they're gonna call it Intro to Arthropod.
No, you're excused, because you're a sophomore, right? Yeah, I was in your time. You're excused. You're good.
You guys have to do the polarium and earthworm lab?
You will do the earthworm lab, yes.
I just don't know how to do it yet, but I have a learner look at it.
So that one, you just use your textbook. Or if you need help, you can come and see one of ours. Okay. Don't do tomorrow. At the end of the day. At midnight tomorrow.
Alright, everybody got the notes pulled up? Yeah. Okay, we're going to start with a real quick review, especially for those of you that were not here on Thursday. What are some of the characteristics we talked about in class that all arthropods have in common? Maybe some of the things that are unique to them or new to them. Go ahead.
Structure.
What do you mean? Give me more specific. Okay, they're invertebrates. What's that mean? No back. Okay, so they're invertebrates. If you want. What's another characteristic of arthropods? Okay, bilateral symmetry would be another. So they divide them into 2 halves. What else? Bilateral symmetry. Vertebrates. What are some other things that are unique to arthropods?
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, we haven't got to the circulatory system. We're going to that in a sec. Okay, the largest group of animals. Yeah. Okay, this is a big one. They have an exoskeleton. What does that mean? Where is that found?
Outside.
On the outside. So it's like they have a suit of armor all the time. Okay? And we talked on Thursday how that poses some help because it makes them give them a lot of protection, but it also poses some problems when they want to grow. Alright, we got one other big thing. Oh, 2 more that we talked about. How do they move a lot? Because they're really good at moving. How are they able to move if they got that big exoskeleton? What do they have that's kind of new to this group to help them with moving around? Wait. Well, wings and what else? Alright, thank you. Jointed appendages. So the appendages are things that stick off like wings, legs, claws, things like that. And they have joints in them so they can move around very easily. Alright, and then the last one, I'm going to pop up here for you guys. We talked about the means coelimate. And people always struggle with that word, coelimate. Mean or clean too. Nikki?
Coelimate, I don't know what it exactly is, it says in here, but, kind of like a big rope.
Well, they're going to move a lot, but it's not going to be tied too much to movement, though. so like the primitive animals we started with were acoelomate. They didn't have a body cavity, no organs. Then we had one group that was pseudocoelomate, kind of a false cavity. Now this guy and the earthworms were coelomate. They have a body cavity where we can grow different structures. All right, now let's give you a few other characteristics about this group. They do have a circulatory system, so they have heart and blood because they are coelomate. Now this one is a little bit more on the primitive end. So which one's the more primitive or maybe less efficient way of pumping blood? Open or closed? Open. And these guys are open. Okay, so if you look at the knee down here, they have some little hearts, little structures that pump blood. The blood goes through some blood vessels, through some tubes, but then it just leaks out of those tubes and it kind of pools around their organs. Okay? And then there's some other blood vessels that will suck the blood back up. And that's a little less efficient because it doesn't always keep the blood moving as much as like our blood. We have a closed system where blood stays in blood vessels and it carries the blood a lot more efficiently. All right. Another thing this group has is segmentation. Okay, we saw that with like the annelids, the earthworms, the leeches, the bristleworms are segmented. These guys are also segments, and you're normally going to see like in their exoskeleton, there's rings or sections to them. Okay, now if we break it up, most of the organisms in this group have two ways of doing this. Some of them are going to have three segments, three main regions, and then they have like them broken up into smaller segments. Okay, so in this case, you have a grasshopper with a head. That's where its sense organs are. You have a thorax. That's where its legs and structures would be. And then we have an abdomen where its tail is. So those are a lot of animals will have three sections like that. There are a few that will only have two. Okay, so like a crayfish or a lobster, if you look at them, they have one big section in the front where their head is, and also where their arms and legs stick off. Okay, so we call this a cephalothorax. So that's a little bigger structure. And then behind it is the tail portion, which is the abdomen. Okay, next we're going to talk about how they get their oxygen, how they basically breathe. And the way they breathe varies a ton based on where they live and also what group they're in. Okay, so if they live in the water, which one of the three do you think they're going to use? Gills, kind of like fish. So the crab that you see here has gills. Now you don't normally see the gills. So if you look at the shells of like a crab or a crayfish, on the sides, right above their legs, they're actually not attached. There's a little space there so water can get under. And they have gills that go right underneath their shells, and they look like feathers underneath. Okay, so they do have gills. Second one would be tracheal tubes. So a lot of things like the insects, for example, are going to have these little tubes like goes throughout their body, kind of like pipes. And so in the morning as it starts to warm up, then they start moving. As they move their muscles, it helps pump air through those pipes, and that brings all the oxygen they need. And then there's actually some little holes in their abdomen that let the air in and out. All right, and then the third one is the spider. Spiders and their relatives have what are called book lungs. So lungs normally are some kind of big organ that does gas exchange with the blood. Okay. Now our lungs on the inside are full of all these little things that look like little bubbles. Gives it a lot of surface area, so we need a lot of oxygen into our blood. The way they're made in spiders and arachnids, instead of being full of little bubbles, they actually have membranes that have blood going cages, more air can go by the blood, they can do more gas exchange. All right, now another thing with arthropods, they have a lot of ways for reproduction. It's another thing that makes this group pretty diverse. We saw some of this in the video clip on insects last week. So I say the vast majority of insects, or even arthropods, are going to do sexual reproduction where there's separate males and females. If you think back to that video last week, remember the first one was that beetle with the long jaw. The male had the long jaw to like throw the other males or females. Okay, so they reproduce sexually. They're separate male and female. And they also do what's called internal fertilization, and that means that they lay, the male puts the sperm into the female, and then she will lay her eggs after that. Okay, so that's what the beetles were doing. The bees in the video too, same thing. We're able to do that. Now, if they live in the water, they still have separate males and females. But a lot of times in the water, they can do external fertilization. And that just means that the female can lay her eggs, and then the male crawls over the eggs, lays his sperm, and it all happens outside of the body. Okay, kind of like fish do in the spring. So right about now, the male fish lay eggs in a spawning area. The females lay eggs. The males come over and deposit sperm on them, and most of the time it happens outside the body.
So those what you said?
No, they would do internal fertilization. All right, there are just a couple I want to mention that are hermaphrodites. Not too many in this group, but if they're real slow, especially, they would have both organs. All right, and then lastly, there's something unique that can happen with some of the insects that form colonies, things like some bees or some ants, things like that. A few of them can reproduce asexually. Okay, meaning there only needs to be one individual. It doesn't have to be a male and a female. And the way this works is we can have a female, so a lot of times it's a queen. She can lay eggs, and the eggs do not need sperm, and they'll just start growing. structures inside of them that cleans their blood and gets rid of their waste. They act kind of like our kidneys. So they're used to get rid of waste. All right, number 3, mandibles. Anybody know what a mandible is? Yeah, our mandibles are lower jaw. Okay, so you're gonna see with these, the arthropods, a lot of them have very unique jaws as far as how they work. And you saw that in the video last week. Remember the first one with those long things sticking out? Those are actually the jaw. So they are gonna have a variety of different mouth parts depending on what they feed. Another example would be like a butterfly. Its jaw is actually the big long tube that's rolled up. So if it gets to a flower, it takes that tube and it sticks it into the flower to suck up the nectar. All right, and then number 4, last one, and you see it in the picture. Most of this group have either what's called compound eyes or simple eyes, or in some cases both. So compound eyes are eyes that have lots of lenses to them. And I know what we have. Ours is simple. We have one lens, one structure in our eye that focuses light. So they have multiple. These ones here would be compound eyes. They have all these different lenses, and each lens was going to form a different image. So it'd be like if you had compound eyes, it would be like having maybe 100 different TVs, slightly different, looking at the same thing, and that's what you would see. So they don't see as clear as our eyes do, but they're really, really good at seeing movements. So that's why they want compound eyes. They can, and you can see they're kind of all around, so they can see movement behind them, in front of them, above them. And a lot of times, if you try to capture an insect, especially if they're faster insects, they're really hard to catch because they have those compound eyes. They can see when you're coming out for a fly swatter. Fly swatter might be a little faster, but most times they're hard to get. So simple eyes are like these little guys. They're a little more similar to ours, but not as good as ours. So they use them more in insects and some other animals for detecting some movement or detecting how bright of light there is, but they don't see as clearly as ours. All right. So what we're going to do next is we're going to start looking at the six classes of arthropods, 6 groups. Insects is one that we kind of introduced you to last week. We'll do that one towards the end of class. You guys in your notes have a chart that we're going to be filling out as we go. On the chart, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off giving you an organism. There'll be kind of organisms of the day. We'll show videos for a couple of them. So you can put that as your example if you want, and I'll give you 2 other examples too. And then we're just going to work down. So we're going to talk about how they breathe, how many legs they have, what kind of eyes they have, do they have antennas, and things like that. Okay? All right. So we're going to start off with everybody's favorite, spiders. How many of you do not like spiders? Anybody have arachnophobia? All right. So this is a spider, tarantula. It's the biggest tarantula. It's called the live bird eater tarantula spider. Okay, now these guys are native to South America, the northern part of it. Even though they're called bird eater, it's pretty rare for them to actually eat a bird. They normally feed on things like earthworms, toads, or you can see a snake here, mice, things like that that are smaller. They feed at night. They're nocturnal. They're very opportunistic. A couple other things I found that were kind of neat about these guys. They will communicate with others of the tarantulas by rubbing their legs together. It creates a little sound when they rub the hairs. They say that sometimes they can fling those hairs at other small organisms that are maybe trying to attack them. And there's a big misconception with tarantulas that if you get bit, you're going to die. Okay? They don't have enough toxin to kill humans generally. I don't think there's even been a case found of that happening. It could be a little painful if they were bite you, but it's not enough venom. But what they do is is they scare people. Because you see them, they look creepy, they got big fangs in the front. And then they'll also scare predators if they're threatened. They'll kind of hide, they'll go up on their back legs, they'll stick their fangs out so you see them, and they kind of intimidate people. Okay? What's that? Yeah, you'll be able to see them. So I think there's a little commercial and then we'll get to
No one likes spiders.
Those things can fly.
Alright, so let's go through some of the characteristics for this group. Alright, now this group does not include just spiders. Also in this group are scorpions and ticks that you see at the bottom. So for respiration, we use, bless you, we use both lungs. That should be your next box. They mentioned in the video they have simple eyes. Remember, they don't see as well as our eyes, so they have pretty limited visibility. They can't see real well, which a lot of them are not. Well, at least the tarantula is nocturnal, so it doesn't matter so much. Body sections is gonna be 2 for the spiders and scorpions. And then for ticks, they have 3. Well, what do you guys think? How many antennae? None. You don't have any antennae. So that's a little unique.
So an antenna, these flashes.
That's plural.
Sounds like a French word.
Alright. Now, for number of appendages, you want to kind of write it the way it's up there. So there's 6 pair of appendages, the whole group. Okay, but what's unique with this group is most of them you're only going to see 4 pairs for legs. normally a fang or of some sort, or a pincher of some sort. All right, and then behind the chelicerae, the next one are going to actually be this guy right here. It's a little elongated in that picture. It's called pedipalp, which is the second pair, and they use that for like holding the food, sensing it, detecting it. All right, everybody good on this side?
Yes.
All right. Group number 2 is class crustacea. Anybody think of some examples in this group? Crab, what else? Shrimp, lobster, any others?
Yes. Crawfish.
Crayfish.
Crawfish.
Seahorse would actually not be.
Tomatoes,
All right, so let me give you one cool example. Okay, so what we're going to show you is a predator in the marine ecosystem, so in the ocean. It's very thin. It's very transparent, so it's kind of cool looking. These guys on the end have hooked legs, so they use those legs to hold on to things. Excuse me. Thank you.
Eat you.
And they also use these hooked legs to grab their prey. Okay, now they're not going to be real big, but they do cause some problems. And then this is the cool thing. So they have separate males and females. The females, when they mate, the male deposits sperm, and then the female will inject venom into the male, poison him, and then she'll actually eat the male.
That's very romantic.
Very romantic. Now, can anybody think of why that's beneficial, though, that she would eat the male?
He doesn't kill the babies.
Well, yeah, more energy for the eggs as they're developing for the female. So it's a benefit for them as a group.
She's kinky.
All right, and then where we find these, they often disrupt ecosystems. They compete for plankton, and they can cause some problems with fish.
Yeah.
Oh, that's coming. Okay, this is what they look like. They're called skeleton shrimps. And I'm going to show you a real short video on this one. This one they just show them moving around and show like kind of hooked appendages, but it's kind of cool looking. So you can see that they use one of their legs with hooks to hook onto something and then kind of float. But if food comes by, they can catch them. There's their pinchers.
Those scary. You eat them?
They're too small.
What's wrong with you?
All right, so that's what they look like. All right, so characteristics of this group. Here's a few other examples. So we got crabs. We have, you know what this is?
Holy
You guys use these at the beginning of the year. Bill bug. Yeah, that's bill bug. This is a barnacle. Yeah, that belongs in this group. And then this looks like another crab or lobster or some sort.
Like I have on my.
Okay, characteristics for this group. Number 1, they use gills for breathing. Okay, you don't normally see them. They're under the shell, but they do have gills. body sections is going to vary. I'd say most of them are 2, but there's a few in this group that have 3. Number of walking legs. They have 5 pair. However, in some of them, the first pair becomes a claw. So like the crab, you see 1, 2, 3, 4 on this side. Here's number 5. The pill bug doesn't have claws, so you will have 5 pair. 5 on this side, 5 on this side.
Does it have antennas?
Great question. What do you think?
Some.
Yes, actually, this language has 2 pairs of antennae. Alright, and then the last thing, you put this with a unique structure. The mandibles on a lot of these guys are kind of cool, especially like lobsters and crayfish. What do crayfish feed on? Anybody know? Sometimes fish, bugs, things on the bottom, worms, things like that. So, like on a crayfish, lobster, their jaws often are on the bottom. So you can see even this crab, it's down here. Here's some structures to hold it in place. So their jaws are a little different than ours. Ours go up and down. Theirs actually go side to side. So they grab something with their claws, pin it on the bottom, and then they have these jaws that go side to side to chew up their food. Alright, next group. Okay, so we're going to do a little description. These guys, this specific example I'm going to show you is native to East Asia and parts of Australia. They like areas that are moist. They can get up to about 8 inches in length. They actually have some venom inside of them, and the Chinese have taken some of that venom out, and they would use that as pain medication for ancient medicine. And then the other thing the Chinese have done with these guys is they've created a cuisine where they deep fry them. And they deep fry them, and you can chew out of them. They're a little bland and bitter tasting, right, because of the venom. No, smart's got to be in this group.
I don't know, it's a good bit.
It's got to have an exoskeleton. Okay, it is called the red-headed Chinese, Chinese red-headed centipede. It's up there. Okay, now the picture on the left is the centipede. Okay, so you can get where you want. On the right are their cuisines. They actually have on sticks where they deep fry them.
I think we have it, but we can't get it.
High in protein. All right, now centime. When you hear the prefix centime, think of math. What does centime mean? 100. Okay, so there's a misconception that these guys have 100 legs. They will vary depending on the centipede species. They're around 100, but some have fewer, some have less. Yeah, that one specifically is going to have fewer than 100. It's definitely got a lot, but fewer than 100. Okay, so let's talk about characteristics for this group. Number of segments will vary from 15 to 81. So they have a head, and then they have a long thorax, and then they'll have an abdomen, but the thorax will have all these different segments. Now, if they have 15 segments, how many legs do they have? 30. They will actually have 30. There's one pair of legs per segment, so 30. How about if they have 81?
162.
162, nice job. So you can see it's sometimes around 100, but it could be a little more, it could be a little bit less. for unique characteristics, we're gonna have a couple of things there. Number one, these guys are carnivores. Okay, so they eat other things. These are ones that sometimes you might find in your basement of your house. If it's moist there, if you have other bugs, things down there, they might get in and feed on them. I know every once in a blue moon I'll find one in my basement, mainly just a dead one, like a little shelf up this long. But those are centipedes. Those are carnivores.
And we can talk.
If you would get a live one,
Just trying to figure out.
they can bite. They got little pinchers in the front, and
I can see us
they might be a little bit
losing
painful if they bite you.
or-
All right, and then another thing that's unique with centipedes versus the one we're going to talk about next, centipedes have bodies that are flat. How many of you have found these at home in your basements?
I do.
Okay.
Does it fight back?
But-
Pick it on my head. Oh my God, what was this like?
All right. I've been good on this one. All right, now the next group is one you might mix up with this one. Okay, so we'll talk about how they're different. So our example for the next group is an arthropod that's a chemist, meaning he uses chemicals, specifically hydrogen cyanide, which is a pretty dangerous chemical. They produce up to 0.6 milligrams, which isn't a lot, but it's enough to kill a mouse. If it's a larger predator, it would actually stun them. If they attack them.
A daddy long leg.
And then this hydrogen cyanide they release actually as a gas from little pores along their body. Okay, they are found in the U.S. They're found on the West Coast in California. Okay, so the name of them is called a cyanide mildew. All right, so when you look at the picture, anything you see that's different with the millipede versus the centipede? It is more round, yeah.
No, I had.
The centipedes are more flat. What about the legs? What's different?
The smaller, more jointed.
Here, yeah. So you'll see the legs, we'll get to this more in a second, but the number of legs, each segment has 2 pairs instead of 1 pair. And that's how you can tell a centipede from a millipede is normally whether it's round or flat, also how many legs, how many pairs per segment. Now what does the prefix milli mean?
100.
No, centi is 100. Milli is 1,000. Okay, so again, they're not going to have 1,000 legs, but they're going to have a lot more than a centipede. So here's a few other examples on the left.
That'd be scary.
Most millipedes have over 100 segments. So if they have exactly 100, how many legs do they have? 400. 2 pairs per segment. So they have at least 400. And they can have more than that. So they can get close to 1,000. They have tracheal tubes. And then make sure somewhere down at the bottom where you have unique characteristics, put that they are round bodies. Because centipedes are flat. these guys are actually herbivores, and make sure that's a unique characteristic. Remember, centipedes were carnivores. These guys are not. They're herbivores. They eat plants. So it'd be pretty rare to find these in your house.
Very good question.
Because they're not trying to feed on other insects. They're just feeding on like leaves. So normally where I see them is like if I'm in the woods and I look under some leaves, sometimes I'll find a millipede. They kind of leave things alone. Because they're herbivores, a lot of them have those little toxins, things in them to make sure or they don't taste good to most animals. They also will not bite you. They don't have big teachers, and a lot of times they have skin glands, things to protect themselves.
Can you kill them with their no chemicals?
No, they're not that strong. Most of the time, the chemicals are real weak for small animals that might be their predators, or they would taste bad, like a bird tries to eat them. So.
I can make humans run away with my chemicals.
So that. Now our next group, we're going to actually put some of the characteristics down as in our description. This is a group of only a few species, but it's been a group that's been around for a long time. So your next column at the bottom, where it says unique characteristics, you want to put something about they're a living fossil, that they've been around for a long time without changing much. They're successful in how they've been, but there's only a few examples of these guys. Characteristics, they have gills. We always find them in the water in the oceans. You're going to see, this one we will watch a video clip on, and you'll see there's a lot of them in the east coast of the U.S. Other characteristics, they have 2 compound eyes, 3 body sections, 4 pairs of legs for walking, and they do not have antennae. How do they know? So that they know that they haven't changed much, because they can find old fossils, and they dig the rocks. They can use carbon dating to figure out what the rocks are, and then they find fossils that look very similar to the ones that we still find. Okay, the other cool thing with these guys, they have blue blood, and they're going to talk in the video clip about why that's important. We actually use them for medicine. Okay, now this is what they look like. Anybody know what this guy is? Not a stingray.
Horseshoe crab.
Horseshoe crab, all right.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to watch a little video clip on them, and then we'll get to our last group of insects.
Just get animals.
Let's do a couple things on insects while we're waiting for this video clip. Insects for respiration, tracheal tubes. Tracheal tubes, yep. 1 pair of antenna.
No, the same one, right?
This is the next one, right?
Oh.
Insects. 1 pair of antenna, tracheal tubes, and then I'll get the last couple right after the video.
You're looking at a species that have managed to survive for half a billion years. They've figured out how to harmonize with their environment in order to last that long. This is actually an insane time for horseshoe crabs. People come from all over the world to see them, particularly in the Delaware Bay region, where that's pretty much the epicenter of horseshoe crab spawning in the United States. But the concentration that we have here is larger than any other place in the world. The surveys that we do, they're done on the same night. They're done in the same way year after year. We have a 1 meter quadrat, a square, putting it down every 20 meters and we're counting the males and females that are within that quadrant.
They don't just rush up on the beach, hey look, it's high tide, lay a bunch of eggs. That doesn't pay off. The females require sand that's lubricated with water to a certain degree so that they can dig through it. And they also need it dry enough that they can create a cavity under themselves into which they release a batch of eggs.
So she's going to lay about a cluster of eggs that's maybe about the size of a golf ball. There'll be about 4,000 or 5,000 eggs in there. And then after she's laid those, you'll see her plow forward, go down a little bit, and do it again. And then she'll do it again, she'll do it again, maybe 4 or 5 times in one tide for about 20,000 eggs.
For every female that you'll see on a spawning tide, there are several males. She won't come ashore to spawn unless she has a male clipped onto her. But there are other males that are jostling around because by doing things right, they can achieve some paternity during spawning. They sort of game the system.
The pharmaceutical biomedical industry uses a test that's made from the blood of the horseshoe crab to determine whether there's any kind of bacteria that would cause an infection, fever, and cause us to die. Anything that's injected into our system, anything that comes in contact with our blood, that includes even the needle.
Okay. So that was the blue blood I was talking about. They use those tests to make sure things are sterile and not infected with bacteria and things. Okay, so we gotta kind of quickly, we have about 2 minutes to get to our last group. So our last group is insects. I'm gonna skip past the example. So insects would include, for example, organisms. Flies, grasshoppers, lice, butterflies, all those different things. Okay, they are the most successful class, so it's unique characteristics, make sure you have something down there that they're the most successful and most numerous. We said they have tracheal tubes. They have compound protein supply. They have 3 segments, head, thorax, and abdomen. One pair of antennae, and then 3 pairs of legs for one, for a total of 6. Okay, and then also as the